Hi, it's Rob Bowron with Sharp College Football, and welcome to the Saturday Six. I'm excited. We have a decent set of games here for this weekend. I think that there's some really solid games kind of in the middle. It's less good at the top, of course. Like some of the teams that are still ranked pretty highly in beta rank are carrying a lot of preseason projection with them, and so they're likely going to drop a little bit as more data comes in, but that's going to start this week as we get to the point where nearly all the teams in college football will have played at least 2 games against FBS opponents. So this is your first time tuning in. This is a preview of 6 games for the coming college football weekend. We do it from an advanced stats perspective. I'm the econometrician behind Beta Rank, an advanced stat system that's built on the same data that's provided to the College Football Playoff Committee. With this, we control for field position, opponent quality, tempo, game state, whether we're in garbage time or not. One of the important things, and look, I in a good faith effort here is just don't reply with like counting stats in the comments of like yards per game, that kind of stuff that doesn't control for opponent and tempo and Anyway. We've got a pretty good slate here. I'm really excited to talk about it. We try to spend about 5 minutes per game here, running it through. We'll compare the offense and the defense. Thus far in the season, and we're going to talk about some of these teams. There's just some teams that have underperformed that we were kind of expecting to be a lot better. I definitely think that if you were, in the brave new world of the 12-team playoff, there are quite a few teams that are going to be in the playoff conversation later on this season that either have taken a loss already and, they may put it together, or have not looked good in their games thus far. And we are going to we're going to look back and think at this point, man, like it certainly does feel like maybe anybody could walk in and win a game in the playoff, right? Maybe not anybody, but like a team in the, teens, 20s, whatever group of 5 team makes this, could certainly walk in, as say Northern Illinois just did, and beat a team that is like Notre Dame right now, as we look at them, is still not out of the playoff conversation and probably should not be, right? By the time we get to the end of the year, they still have a very favorable schedule, even though they just walked face first into a wall. LSU still has time to put it together. Texas A&M still has time to put it together. Some of these teams, there are going to be a lot of very good Power 5 teams, and they may not be very good now, that, if you have 2 losses, you're in the conversation. I think, the other team here we're going to talk about that has not looked, and I guess there's 2 of them. One of them is Alabama. I don't know if anybody expected Alabama to be a top-notch contender coming into this year. Maybe a step behind where we'd put Georgia and Ohio State, but I would have put, and many people would have put Oregon up there coming into this year. They have not played up to snuff thus far. We'll certainly talk about that when we talk about their game against Oregon State. Anyway, let's get it started. Let's get through these because I almost never stick to the 5 minutes. I have a timer, but I almost never stick to the 5 minutes. So here we go. We get Alabama at Wisconsin. Getting Alabama to come all the way up to Madison, which is kind of a treat. We've got Alabama. Kalen DeBoer, of course, is your head coach. Luke Fickell's your head coach at Wisconsin. The Alabama offense right now, it's not bad. Look, they're doing a little bit better than they were last year, which is not all that surprising given their offensive coordinator last season. Kalen DeBoer should be an improvement. Nick Sheridan's your new play caller here. Look, Sheridan was really bad at his time in Indiana. I expect him to be fine with DeBoer holding his hand here. Alabama thus far, and this is still a mix of last season's data weighted down significantly, as well as like this season's data weighted in whole. Alabama's got a drive efficiency of 15. They're doing a decent job finishing drives, being able to put up points, being able to sustain drives. That's play calling and execution. Explosive drives are number 15 overall. They do a good job putting up big plays, and I expect that both of these numbers to potentially improve over the season. DeBoer's a really good play caller and he's got some really good offensive design. Play efficiency, it's the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics, but this is one that they're still doing pretty well. Where they're struggling a little bit more is negative drives, number 61 overall here. few too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers. That's something to work on. There's some sloppiness and lack of execution here. They're at 8 in effective rush and 69 in effective pass. That's not all that surprising given the quarterback, Jalen Milroe. He sits at 66.7% completion, 11.1 per. That's really good. A lot of it is like he's still a bit more of a threat with his legs, as you can see with these numbers here. Defensively, Wisconsin, Mike Tressel is your defensive play caller here. And Luke Fickell, as much as Kalen DeBoer is known as an offensive coach, Luke Fickell is a defensive coach. He and Marcus Freeman and then Mike Tressel had good defenses at Cincinnati. And they're still working to get back to sort of the Wisconsin spot that they were under Jim Leonhard. They had some really good defenses there. They kind of fell off at the end, as did the entire program. But defensively, they definitely have some work still to do. This is kind of a middle of the Power 4 defense right now. They have, like, I think that they can improve on this. I think the play calling and the coaching and more time in the system can certainly help. They're at 31 in drive efficiency. This is their best number. They do a good job using the field to their advantage, finding ways to get off the field and avoid giving up points. 40 in explosive drives. They are a little more susceptible to giving up big plays. Where they really struggle, and this will be an interesting thing to see in this game, is forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. They're not great at negative drives, not great at imposing bad things on the offensive side of the football. They don't have a really big run-pass split. That'll be something to keep an eye on here. Beat Alabama, you got to be able to slow down the run and not get burned on big pass plays. Flip it over to the other side. Wisconsin's offense has not been great under Phil Longo. Now, look, they still have a huge opportunity to improve with more data in for this season. Like Phil Longo's a bit more of a home run hitter traditionally in his past. They're going to need to get the explosive plays going, I think, for his offense to really get going. The drive efficiency right now is not great. This is going to be a pretty stout test for this Wisconsin offense that has struggled a little bit, since Fickell took over and Longo took over. Their best number, oddly enough, is that negative drives number, avoiding 3-and-outs and avoiding turnovers. They're still better at running the ball than they are throwing the ball. They did get a good quarterback pickup in the portal, Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. He's only completing 60.3% of his passes, 6.4 per. That's a real struggle. Wisconsin has not played the best of competition up to this point. Modern college football, your quarterback, you want to be closer to 65% than 60. Anything under 60, of course, is, a big warning sign. But 6.4 per against the competition they've played up that point, that's a bit of a warning flag, I think. I'm a little worried about this Wisconsin offense. They kind of do need to take a step forward here. I'm wondering where that's going to come from, either running or throwing the ball. Defensively, Kane Womack is your defensive coordinator here. Came over from being the head coach at South Alabama. Reunites with Kalen DeBoer from their time at Indiana. We've got them at number 5 right now. They do a really good job at drive efficiency, finding ways to avoid, giving up long drives. Explosive drives, again, they do a good job containing big plays. All of these are scaled to the offensive number because in modern college football, the very best offenses are still going to put up points on the very best defenses. Play efficiency is quite good. They're good at negative drives, forcing 3-and-outs, forcing turnovers. They're a bit better against the pass than they are against the run. I'm interested to see how this shakes out as the season goes on and they play more competition. Some of this right now is just a mix of teams that they played up to this point. As we get more in and we get teams that are better at passing in, I actually expect this to flip. The Tide do have a bit of a young secondary. We've got this Alabama with an 87% win probability and about 15.22 in the naive spread. The predicted score portion of this is 34 to 15 Alabama. In the matchup of the Wildcats, plurals. So Arizona, Brent Brennan is your head coach. Chris Kleiman is your head coach of Kansas State. Arizona comes in right now, and both of these teams had a bit of a shaky performance last week in particular. I'm interested to see what they look like. This is a Friday game here. Arizona's offense is sitting at number 38 overall. That's a bit of a down. Last season they finished at number 5 overall. Dino Babers is your play caller here. So definitely the in-season data for this season is pulling them down a little bit. They are really, really struggling at drive efficiency, 107 in drive efficiency. They are highly, highly dependent on big plays right now. They're at number 9 in explosive drives. They are struggling to sustain drives and be able to put up big plays. They're at number 13 overall in play efficiency. That's a good yards per play number outside of explosives. Again, this is the least important of the core 4 beta rank metrics. Their negative drives number is good, avoiding 3 and outs, avoiding turnovers. They don't have a huge run pass split. I'm interested to see how it shakes out in this game in particular. They are going to be like, as we saw last week with, and you can see it right now with Kansas State's effective pass number. With only a little bit of data in for Kansas State, they got torched by Tulane in one receiver in particular, and that certainly won't come back to haunt you when you're playing either Arizona or Missouri, whether you have one receiver in particular. Defensively, Kansas State's in a pretty good spot, though, right now, number 18 overall. They've consistently had pretty good defenses at Kansas State under Kleeman. Joe Klanderman's your defensive coordinator here. They're really good at drive efficiency, finding ways to avoid giving up long drives, avoid giving up points. A little bit worrisome here is that they are less good at containing big plays. Arizona being highly reliant on that right now is something to keep an eye on. Their play efficiency number is not great. They're okay at forcing 3 and outs and turnovers. That's kind of a middle of the power 4 number. They're really good thus far, and we'll see how this shakes out again as more data comes in on effective rush. They struggle. They got torched by one receiver in particular for Tulane. And of course, you get T-Mac, Tetero, McMillan in this game. Interested to see how this shakes out. Arizona's coming in. They had a really rough outing against an FCS opponent, and that data doesn't show up in here. Last week with 2 offensive linemen out, they struggled with their protections. Something to keep an eye on this side of the ball is Arizona's offensive line holding up long enough for Arizona to get the ball out and perhaps take advantage of some spotty coverage from Kansas State. Flip it around. This is another interesting matchup here. I'm sorry. And Noah Fafita is your quarterback for Arizona. 64.9% completion, 10.4 per. Those are good numbers. Kansas State right now, their offense sits at number 14 overall, and they're really good at drive efficiency. They've been able to sustain drives to put up points. That's really been where their bread has been buttered thus far in the small sample that we still have for this season and some weighted in data from last season. Explosive drives, they're struggling a bit more here. That's something to keep an eye on. Play efficiency hasn't been great. Their negative drives, they do take some bad turnovers, bad 3 and outs, 48 overall or 43 overall in negative drives here. Something to look at to see if they could clean up here. It will be hard for them to, given these other underlying numbers, to be able to sustain this drive efficiency number over the entire season. Again, these numbers are going to firm up a bit more as we get more data in. They have a huge run pass split right now, which is not all that surprising because Avery Johnson's your quarterback. Look, he's got I'm not saying he can't throw the ball around. He's got a 65.9% completion percentage, 7.6 per. They also haven't played the toughest competition up to this point yet. And so they have definitely been better at running the ball than they have been throwing the ball. You get a defense here under Dwayne Aquina, and we only have their outing against New Mexico in here, where they really struggled in that outing against New Mexico. New Mexico was able to sustain drives against them. New Mexico also has a mobile quarterback. That is a major watch out coming into this game. I think if you are Arizona, Bronco Mendenhall on that New Mexico offense, they were able to move the ball pretty well. They struggled a little bit in explosive drives in that game too. They were pretty good at drive efficiency. They were pretty good at negative drives. They don't have a huge run pass split. Those are both struggle numbers for them. I'm just interested to see. They looked like they cleaned up a lot of their mistakes that they had. Lots of teams can struggle with a mobile quarterback the first time out against one, and I don't know that they were fully knew what they were going to expect out of New Mexico. I'm interested to see New Mexico against Auburn, which will of course happen on Saturday. Not in time to see, so we can see a little bit more of what we should expect from New Mexico for the year. I'm really interested here. I'm interested to see what Avery Johnson and this Arizona defense are sort of made of, because I think we do have some questions about Arizona's defensive line, which they lost a lot in the portal in the offseason. And Avery Johnson, really, what should we expect? Kansas State was really high on him. Is he going to be able to live up to the expectations? This is probably our first real test of that. We've got a K-State at 55%. on the win probability and 1.9 in the naive spread. However, in the predicted points, that pass defense that got torched last week by Kansas in some small sample definitely played into the predicted points. The predicted points has this Arizona 41, Kansas State 23. I think that's a little too rosy for Arizona here. I do think that this could come down into who is able to contain the other team's star player best, between T-Mac and Avery Johnson. This is actually a really fun game. Look, LSU started out with the early season loss to USC. Brian Kelly's your head coach here. Shane Beamer's your head coach at South Carolina. South Carolina does appear to be better than expected, and that's what makes this a fun game, because we're going to find out something about both of these teams here, learn a bit more about LSU, what they're made of, what they could likely be this season. We have big questions coming about this team still. There's a lot of last season data still baked in here. Joe Sloan's your new offensive coordinator for LSU. They, of course, had the number 1 offense last season. This number is likely going to come down a bit from where we have them at number 2 currently because of that, but nonetheless, I would still expect LSU to have a top 20 offense coming into the in this year. Drive efficiency, they're pretty good. They're sustaining drives to put up points. They are a very explosive offense still. They're number 3 of play efficiency. They avoid negative drives. They avoid 3 and outs and turnovers so far. They have a huge run pass split right now. They just really, really struggle to run the football. That's going to be interesting. South Carolina's defensive line has looked really good. I think getting to see them against LSU's offensive line is going to be fun in this game in particular. They definitely wreaked havoc on Kentucky last week. Your defensive coordinator here is Clayton White. It would be really good for him. I like the hire when he came over from Western Kentucky. It'd be really good for him if they actually got this going this year. 46 in drive efficiency. They do struggle a little bit here. You are able to put up longer drives to put up points against them. Number 18 in explosive drives. They would do a good job here avoiding giving up big plays. And 18 in negative drives, forcing 3 and outs, forcing turnovers. They do have a little bit of a run pass split. It's in their favor here. They've been better against the pass than they are against the run. That's going to really get tested here in this game. Garrett Nussmeier is your quarterback here for LSU. 75% completion percentage, 8.0 per. Those are really good numbers. He does have a tough game already in the books against a USC team that we likely think will be better. I'm excited to see what LSU's offense and what South Carolina's defense really look like in this game. For both of these teams, we should have a really good idea, I think, because they will each have played, and I don't know that we're going to say Kentucky is a really, really good team, but Kentucky is a pretty solid opponent. LSU will have played USC, a team that looks like a very solid opponent to potentially a pretty good team, pretty good team to maybe a very good team. I guess if we're probably being honest, we'll see. I still want to see how much jump the defense makes there. But getting a measuring stick game between these two early in the season is super helpful in helping to figure out where a lot of teams are going to shake out, including the Trojans. How does South Carolina do against this LSU team will tell us something too about what we should think about USC. Flip it to the other side of the ball. The South Carolina offense is still struggling a little bit. Dow Lugans is your offensive coordinator for them. Blake Baker is your defensive coordinator for LSU. Again, there's a lot of last season data still in this. I think LSU's defense is going to bounce back and be a lot better. We saw that in the game against USC. Offensively right now, South Carolina is better at drive efficiency. They're able to sustain drives to be able to put up points. They're really struggling to put up big plays relative to other teams, 107 overall here. And their negative drives numbers also not great. Too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers. That's absolutely something to clean up. Look, they are definitely better at running the ball than they are throwing the ball. Lenora Sellers is your quarterback here. He's a big time running threat. They've got a 55.3% completion percentage, 7.2 per. Look, he is not getting the ball downfield and not completing at a high rate. He is definitely adding and needs to continue to add with his legs on the ground. LSU, again, I think that these numbers are going to improve. The by how much is really critical for what LSU ends up being this season, because last season they were just horrific on defense. They sit at 98 in drive efficiency, 113 in negative drives. I guess what I want to call out here is that they are better at stopping and finding ways to get off the field and preventing long drives. They have struggled a little bit more with big plays. You definitely saw in that USC game, USC was able to sustain some drives against them. They are better against the run thus far this season than they have been against the pass. I'm interested to see how that shakes out against the South Carolina team. That is definitely a flip of that that USC team that definitely threw the ball pretty effectively against them. We've got this as LSU with an 82% win probability, 10.99 in the naive spread. But we've got this closer in the predicted points, 37-32. I'm just excited. I think that we're going to learn a lot about these teams. Is the South Carolina defense for real? Where should we start to project LSU's defense to finish? Do we think that they're going to make it into the top 30? There's talent. There's a new defensive coordinator. Are they going to get there? All right. Buddy, it's hard to think of a team that hasn't lost, that has looked more disappointing than Oregon. Oregon's offense right now, and in particular their offensive line, is really, really struggling. Dan Lanning is your head coach for the Ducks. Trent Bray is your head coach for the Beavs. Oregon's offense right now, Will Stein's your offensive coordinator. They're at number 6 overall in beta rank. They're at 6 in drive efficiency. There's still a lot of last season's data in here. They were at number 2 offensively last season. The fact that we have a mix of that data together and they're sitting at number 6 tells you that the offense is falling off from where we saw last season, and they need to get this figured out if they want to be competing for a national title this year. They're number 6 in drive efficiency. They've done a really good job of being able to sustain drives and put up points when it's worked. There have been some moments of really bad offensive line play that have come back to haunt them. And truly, Gabriel, too, I think has struggled with in some of his, not reads of when he's throwing the ball, his reads of the blitzes coming and his reads of the pocket. Number 17 overall in explosive drives. They've struggled a little bit more this season to be able to put up big plays. Negative drives, this is what haunts them. They are struggling to avoid 3 and outs and avoid turnovers. If they can do that, they have been able to sustain drives and generally have been able to find some big plays. They are struggling running the football. 71 in effective rush versus number 4 in effective pass. Again, for this season, we only have the Boise State game. We don't have their also bad game against Idaho mixed in here. Dylan Gabriel's your quarterback. He's at 84.3% completion percentage, 8.9 per. Those are healthy numbers. You'd like to see given the level of competition they've played up to this point, you'd like to see a higher per on that, rather than just the 8.9. Anyway, defensively, Keith Hayward is your defensive coordinator here. They've done a pretty good job. Look, this Oregon State job is a tough job. It was when Jonathan Smith took it over and turned them around. It was a tough job. When Trent Bray took it over, they got hit pretty hard in the portal. Right now, with limited data, and they took it to San Diego State. They're at 23 in drive efficiency. They do a pretty good job finding ways to get off the field, avoiding giving up points. They're at 66 in explosive drives, though. Something to keep an eye on here. They are struggling a little bit. They can be susceptible to some big plays. 58 in negative drives. That's a little bit of a problem. Not forcing enough 3 and outs, not forcing enough turnovers. Not a big run pass split here. If Oregon, I think for Oregon State, what you're really hoping for here is without having to load up the box, that you can slow down Oregon's running game, force them to pass, and then potentially get pressure on Gabriel. You flip it around here, and the Oregon State offense, Ryan Gunderson is your offensive play caller. Tosh Lapoy is your defensive play caller for Oregon. Oregon's defense is pretty mediocre right now. Anyway, a lot of eyes are focused on the offense. The offense was the engines of last year's team. The defense hasn't been great shakes either, and that's a totally valid complaint. So offensively right now for Oregon State, they're at 27 overall. Again, this is pretty good. You were going to probably expect a little bit of a fall off from the Jonathan Smith, Brian Lindgren era there. But they've been pretty good here, and especially considering the losses that they took in the portal. They are struggling a bit with drive efficiency, but they are really good at explosive drives. They've been found ways to be able to put up big plays, and they're avoiding 3-and-outs and avoiding turnovers. That's not a bad mix. It'd be nice to be able to mix in some ability to sustain some drives and get points in here as well. They're at number 4 in effective rush versus number 105 in effective pass. Like the Beavs last year definitely struggled to throw the football a little bit, other than to the tight ends. That has carried forward into this season, even with Damian Martinez now gone. The Oregon defense with Tosh Lapoy, they really needed to take a step forward this season if they had national title aspirations. They have taken a bit of a step backward this season. Again, this is only with the Boise State data in, but that data was not good. 32 overall. They're struggling a bit with drive efficiency. This is kind of a, sunny side of the middle of a power 4 defense. You don't win many titles with that. So this is going to have to improve. We don't have a ton of data in. There's absolutely room for that. But they are struggling with explosive drives. They're struggling with negative drives, not forcing enough 3-and-outs and not forcing enough turnovers. They have a huge run pass split from having played Boise State and their Heisman candidate running back, who literally, of course, should be in the Heisman conversation. Oregon did nothing to dissuade anyone from that, of course, in that game. I'm interested to see what this looks like here. They're going to need to clean some things up because the Beavs are going to look to run the football here. Giovanni McCoy is your quarterback for Oregon State, 69.9% completion percentage, 8.2 per. Again, though, this game is probably going to come down to Oregon being able to keep Gabriel upright and not making bad decisions, not taking sacks, and can Oregon stop the Oregon State run game? In all likelihood, those things should happen. We've got this Oregon with a 91% win probability, 17.22 on the naive spread, and we've got it 40-21 in the predicted score. Staying in the Northwest for the Apple Cup, Jed Fish is your new head coach at Washington. Jake Dickert is your head coach at Washington State. And look, this should actually be a pretty fun game. I don't think that these teams are wildly mismatched coming into this game. Of course, Washington has massive personnel losses off of last season. Washington State didn't get hit as bad, of course, as Oregon State did in the portal. And Washington State's coming off a pretty good win against Texas Tech at home. This game is going to be in Seattle. I think I have it listed at Washington there, but this game is actually at the Seahawks Stadium. Offensively, Washington right now, this is about where they were last season. Fish is a really good play caller. So I expect these numbers to for the most part continue. They're struggling with drive efficiency though right now. They definitely need to clean that up, be able to put up some more long drives to be able to put up points. That they'll need that to be able to sustain this number in all likelihood. But their explosive drives number, they're really good at this thus far. They've been able to put up a lot of big plays for points. They've avoided negative drives, avoided 3-and-outs. They've avoided turnovers. They have a decent run pass split, number 11 in effective pass versus 31 in effective rush. It's not massively surprising. Jonah Coleman, they got a really good running back to transfer from Arizona. I'm sure they would like to get more out of him in this game. The issue with Washington, and the one that I'm just sort of curious about as the season goes on, is do they have the depth to sustain a full season on the offensive line? We'll see. Washington State's defense right now, Jeff Schmedding is your defensive coordinator. They're not grading out really great right now. I'm interested to see how it shakes out as we get more into the season, in particular after this game. We've got them at 83 overall. They weren't this bad this last year, so which means the data that we have on them up to this point hasn't been great. Struggling with drive efficiency, struggling with explosive drives. Their play efficiency is okay. They're not forcing enough 3-and-outs. They're not forcing enough turnovers here. 89 in effective rush, 75 in effective pass. Look, it's still early. We're going to learn a lot about these teams, particularly in this game. If Washington State is their number is going to climb precipitously if they're able to come into this game and actually slow down this Washington offense. This isn't last year's Washington offense. They're a bit worse than that. I'm interested to see where this shakes out in this game. We've got Will Rogers at the quarterback, 78.8% completion percentage, 9.8 per. Flip it over the other side of the football. Ben Arbuckle is your offensive coordinator for Washington State. He's done a good job. Their drive efficiency right now, I mean, and this is with Cam Ward transferring, their drive efficiency right now, they're struggling a little bit here. They haven't been able to sustain drives to put up points, but they have hit some big plays. They're number 10 overall in explosive drives. That's a good number to keep an eye on. Number 11 in play efficiency. It is a bit of feast or famine for though, because they are also struggling with negative drives, too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers. They're running the ball really well versus throwing the ball. I'm interested to see how that holds up, because Arbuckle is definitely an air raid guy, and seeing what he's got, as this season goes on, whether he continues to lean into that split that we see there. Washington's defense, and it's Steve Belichick, the son of Belichick pair. I guess that's sort of a little redundant to say this. I've called someone the son of the father. Anyway, the defense right now, we've got them graded out at 44 overall. That is a little bit more of a struggle than what we saw, or we had them last year. They weren't a great defense last year, but they definitely had improved over DeBoer's time in Seattle. Right now, they're fallen off a little bit off of where we had them last year. I'm interested to see in this game how they hold up. They've struggled a bit with explosive drives. That's something to keep an eye on here. Their negative drives, they're not forcing enough 3 and outs. They're not forcing enough turnovers. Mostly what they've been good at is their offense has given them good field position, and they've been able to use that to their advantage to not give up points. That's not a bad thing. No big run pass split here. We've got John Mateen, or Mateer, or my handwriting's bad. I'm going to say that's Mateer because I didn't bring that in all the way down. If it wasn't in, 55.6% completion percentage, 13.0 per. That tells you we're getting the ball down the field. 13.0 per is we are attempting to get the ball down the field. That completion percentage also is a pretty good hint that Washington State's taking some shots down the field. We've got this as a really close game. Washington with the 52% win probability, really is a toss up, about half a point, really in their favor. However, the prediction model, because of some of these high numbers that you see in here, like the negative drives for Washington at 103, we basically have it right now as the predicted points, and I think this is off, as Washington 26-40 for Washington State. We'll see. I think Washington should be slightly favored in this game. Washington State does probably have better depth, though. That's something to keep an eye on here in this game. And I know I normally do a group of 5 game. At least one mixed in here. There wasn't anything that compelling. I actually think this is an interesting game. So we have a game of 2 teams that lost. Have already lost a really important game in the early season. And what is going to happen here, I think, is a really interesting question. That neither of these teams are dead. I mean, maybe Florida's dead in the water, but Texas A&M isn't dead in the water. And if Florida were to come in here and knock A&M back a bit, particularly with the quarterback change that they have, you could talk yourself into some things maybe. Mike Elko is your head coach at Texas A&M. Billy Napier, of course, is your head coach at Florida. This offense for A&M is not bad. They're at 25 overall. Colin Klein is your offensive coordinator here, came over from K-State. They're doing a really good job at drive efficiency, being able to sustain drives to put up points, but they're struggling when it comes to explosive drives. They have not been able to really put up big plays here. If you peek down below and see their run-pass split, that'll tell you a little bit why. Teams that tend to be highly dependent on the run are often really good at drive efficiency, and they struggle to put up big plays. That is like the Army, Air Force, Navy offense when they're really good. You can find a really big explosive split and a efficiency explosive split and a really big run pass split. Anyway, their negative drives, they've been a little bit better here. Number 30 overall. There's still some stuff to clean up. Too many 3 and outs, too many turnovers. So they need to be able to put up some big plays here. As we talked about, there's a really big run pass split. Connor Wegman's your quarterback, 52.3% completion percentage, 5.1 per. I got to be honest, and a lot of people coming into this season, we're talking about he just needs to be healthy. If this doesn't get better, they got to go to somebody else. Those are horrible numbers in modern college football. All right, Defensively, Austin Armstrong's your defensive coordinator for Florida. They were really, really bad last season on defense. They have not shown much improvement in this season either. And so this game against the Texas A&M offense that hasn't really put it together is a really interesting game. We've got them with they're better at drive efficiency, finding ways to get off the field and avoid giving up points. They are really struggling with big plays. We'll see if Texas A&M can get it going here in the explosive drives range. Not great thus far either at negative drives, not forcing enough 3 and outs, not forcing enough turnovers. They have a decent run pass split. It's a little bit in their favor given the way things have gone. Again, like they've been so bad against the pass. I'm interested in if A&M can kind of get it going here against this pass defense. But they're definitely going to need to be able to try to stop the run here against this A&M team. Flip it over to the defensive side of the ball or the other side of the ball. Billy Napier's your play caller here. They're at 30 overall in beta rank. Their drive efficiency stinks. They are not very good at sustaining drives to be able to put up points, but their explosive drives is better. It's not a bad number. They are pretty good at putting up big plays. Their play efficiency outside of explosives is really good. Again, that's the least important of these four. And their negative drives at 27. You know, you could certainly clean some things up here, but given where their drive efficiency is, that's not anything to complain about. But if they could cut down on the 3 and outs and turnovers, that would also improve. They are better, and this is interesting for Napier, who like when he was at Louisiana, definitely had a run-oriented offense. They're at number 16 in effective pass versus 65 in effective rush. DJ Lagway is your new quarterback, extremely heralded recruit here, 67.7% completion, 15.7 per. He's going to get more of a live opponent here in A&M. This A&M defense, Jay Bateman is your defensive coordinator here, once at Army, then at North Carolina, worked at Army, didn't work at North Carolina. He should work with Mike Elko there to hold his hand. 42 overall in drive efficiency. They've been susceptible to being able to put together drives against them. Notre Dame could put a few drives against them. They're much better at containing big plays at number 16 overall in explosive drives. 16 at negative drives. They've been pretty good at forcing 3 and outs, pretty good at forcing turnovers. They're at 8 in effective pass and 41 in effective rush. That should tell us something about Lagway here. And whether this A&M split holds up again. Like, we're in a bit of a small sample, so the defensive numbers are going to shift around a little bit as people play more opponents who have different styles in there. Really excited for this game. Even though both of these teams have losses, this is sort of the consolation bowl, if you will. A&M's not in a horrible spot. I mean, they could, still put it together and be like in the playoff conversation into November. We've got A&M with a 63% win probability, 3.22. We, however, have this flip 29-36 in the predicted points. I still like A&M in this game. It's hard to like A&M with that offense, with where Wegman's passing numbers are at and where that effective pass number is. That's rough. But Florida's been a basket case, and it's hard to put your support behind, or put your belief behind a basket case. Anyway, I'm excited for this week. We're going to learn a ton about these teams, and really a ton about everyone, because like I said, nearly everyone has one. There's like 3 holdouts who only haven't played an FBS team yet, but most everyone's going to have at least 2 games in against FBS opponents. We're going to start to build out the connective tissue, the edges and nodes, if you want to think about this in terms of a topology, that make up the college football season, that can connect all the college football data and allow us to do the modeling and allow the modeling to be interesting. I'm really excited for that for this week. And then starting to get into, the meat of conference play. Anyway, let's close this out, because there's nothing. I mean, these games are interesting. There's nothing that interesting though. Like, we definitely weren't spoiled with some of the off-season games, I would say, or some of the non-conference games this year, I would say. Anyway, I'm Rob Bowron. I'm the econometrician behind Bowron, an advanced system for college football. You can find all that you saw and a whole lot more at sharpcollegefootball.com. You can find me at BetaRankFB or at Sharp College Football. And of course, on our YouTube at Sharp College Football as well. You can find all the videos. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again for the Saturday 6 next week.